What is going on, guys? It's Robert here with the Back Satchel Hunters one more time, and I figured I would kind of drag out a crucial piece of hunting equipment. Of course, as most of you guys have noticed, a lot of the content here on our channel is related to obviously outdoor activities, hunting, primarily lightweight backpack hunting type gear. And this year I'll be utilizing a rifle that is new to me and somewhat new to the market. They are, more or less Forbes designed rifles, from what a lot of guys talk about. But I'll just go ahead and tell you from what little experience I've had in the field with this thing so far, super lightweight, super accurate, and a lot better than what you'd expect from what they call an ultralight hunting rifle. A lot of times when you go for ultralight, you sacrifice on accuracy, or the guns become a lot more difficult to run consistently. And so far, this little pooch has been awesome. This year I'll be running the Barrett Fieldcraft. Of course, this particular one is a short action, chambered in 7mm-08. You can't go wrong with a caliber of that nature. Of course, this rifle is clear, of course, but I'll just kind of do a little, get it near the camera there for you. And I'm just running nothing fancy, just a Leupold VX 3i, 3.5 by 10 by 40. This particular one is a 1-inch tube, but I'm also running it in Tally ultralight rings. So I'll go ahead, and since we're going to do a little brief discussion, show that the rifle is clear, and I guess I'll go ahead and let that lead into one of the first neat features about this rifle. When it comes to ultralights, there's only so many places that you can start shaving off weight without sacrificing things. And one thing that I really like that they've done with this particular one, of course, it's a blind magazine, no floor plate there. But a neat thing about it, the natural thing to do when you drop a shell into a rifle, gravity's usually going to take it to the inside of the receiver. And you might be able to see in here the little swell on the magazine followers on the outside. So as you load those with your thumb, you're naturally going to push, left, right, instead of having to start on the right, like most of your Remington 700s and other bolt guns do. This stock is, of course, a biggie. That's one of your largest components of a bolt gun, less the barrel action. These stocks are hand-laid carbon fiber, super lightweight, and I love the texture on this one. Of course, it's got a nice little cheek weld there that's visible, but it's got a good, just kind of a smooth texture to it. Nothing super aggressive, but it's just enough to give it kind of a matte color, I guess, but a good feel at the same time. Of course, this particular one does have your standard sling swivel attachments. I might run it to run use it to run a Harris bipod or something along that line. But as far as this gun, I do not run a sling while hunting with a backpack. A sling is just more weight, more stuff to get tangled up. I run a Kifaru gun bearer on my pack. That'll be in a later video. Some of you guys may have seen it in videos or photos from hunts last season, and even some from earlier this year, maybe doing a pack review or when we was walking with our packs. But this thing is just nicely tucked in from a left shoulder with the gun bearer, and there's no need for a sling. It's the quickest way to deploy it, and if I'm moving, my pack's on me, so there you go. But one thing that I found to be really neat about this rifle, when I was researching into it before I purchased it, was how they actually they glass bed these from tip to the back of the receiver here on the tang, and they are hand glass bedded by someone up at Barrett. That in itself I know is time consuming to some extent, but it translates a lot into the accuracy and the consistency of these rifles. They do tend to favor heavier projectiles in a majority of these short action calibers that I've been reading about. Of course, most of your reviews and stuff are going to be on 6.5 Creedmoor, but myself, I looked at the ballistics of the 7mm-08, and it really impressed me. Plus, a lot of Western hunters are running 7mm-08 for elk, moose, whatever, but elk and below, and that's what a majority of the game I go after is going to be, more of the deer family. So anyways, the biggest thing is, of course, that consistency and that accuracy that these do tend to crank out shot after shot. A really nice thing you may be able to tell here, this trigger is pretty well close to the width of the trigger guard. Of course, a wider trigger obviously is more friendly if you're running gloves, and there's plenty of room in there for gloves in that trigger guard. But it being so wide and having a nice texture to it, it tends to be easier to evenly add pressure. It's going to reduce the odds of you snatching it or pulling it and throwing a shot. I have found it to be a lot easier to touch rounds off consistently with this gun than some others of my Remy's and other guns that have really thin trigger profiles. Just little things like that. It does only have a 2-position safety, which is your standard 700 style. Of course, this trigger and safety and all that good stuff is a proprietary setup for Barrett, but it is a Timney trigger, more or less. And they do break crisp from what I've been seeing right at 3 pounds, 2 ounces or so, around the 3-pound mark, which is pretty good for a hunting rifle. My precision guns, I prefer for them to be a bit lighter, but when I'm lugging it around the woods and near other people or moving around, a little bit heavier trigger is not a bad thing necessarily. But anyways, all that talking aside, it is just a 2-position, so on-off. I do like a 3-position where it has a bolt lock, because when you've got this thing, your bolt is on the outside when it's on the gun bearer, because I wear it on my left side to keep bear spray and the sidearm free on my right. And there's been a few times where I've seen a branch or a piece of brush catch the bolt and throw it open on 2-position safety rifles. But of course, then you lose a shell or potentially lose your bolt. So that in itself is aggravating, but it's one of those things, if you're conscious of your gun at all times, it's probably not going to be a big deal. I just prefer a 3-position safety. So going on from the rifle itself to the bolt, of course, this bolt, it's another place you can save some weight, but you can also make some pretty important improvements as far as your ejector and extractor goes. Of course, this thing's not focused. Let me focus here. Maybe it's a little bit better. Very similar to a Remington 700. I've got the spiral fluting on the side, of course, for weight reduction. And two key things that really stood out to me on the construction of the bolt, because the worst thing that can possibly happen, if you're at the range, you're just shooting paper, it's not a big deal. But if you spent $30,000 on a sheep hunt, or you're just out in the backcountry and a grizzly bear's after you, whatever, the last thing you want to happen is a welded bolt or a soldered bolt handle to break off. And you'd be surprised at how many of your main production guns, some of the most popular ones on the planet, are just soldered and welded. And how often it actually happens, how many times those failures do occur. It's not unheard of. But anyways, one thing that really stood out to me on this bolt of this Barrett, they took that extra time to, you can probably see there, it is dovetailed, of course, and pinned. So a dovetail joint, essentially tongue and groove type thing, I guess you could say, but something that's wedged in like that, rather than just being soldered or welded, is going to be a lot stronger, but also a lot easier to replace should you bend this thing. It's got a very thin profile. Of course, they also kind of drilled into the end there of the knob. Any area that weight reduction can be done, Barrett obviously devoted the time and attention to detail in doing so. But little things like that, bolt knob breaking off, extractor or ejector failures, those are biggies. They can't always be avoided, but doing the best you can up front to minimize the risk of that happening, obviously shows they've done their homework. So that was a biggie for me. Another really nice thing about this bolt, you may or may not be able to see, there's a little ridge right here. Of course, this isn't wanting to focus perfect because of lighting out here. This bolt is 2 different tolerances as far as whenever your 2 lugs are up and you're locking this into battery, it's slightly larger. It's probably just a few thousandths of an inch wider in diameter here on the face than it is throughout the main body. That in itself, of course, is going to lock this thing up tight. I mean, rock solid whenever it's in battery. A nice thing about that, once you open it and you're ejecting a shell or sending another one into the chamber, while it's in travel between, obviously, the chamber being open the whole way back and forward, it being wider gives it that little bit more intolerance, and that tiny bit can make a big difference when you're in dust, dirt, snow, ice, pine needles, leaves, whatever it may be. A leaf's not all that thick, but you get something jammed just right in the in the little rail where your bolt travels. You can lock one of these guns up, and on the hunt of a lifetime or in a survival situation, that's a biggie. So the fact that it's rock solid and tight where it needs to be in battery, where there's no play whatsoever, but loose and has a little bit of extra play in travel, it is a biggie. And I'll go ahead and throw the bolt in the rifle here. Again, like I say, the lighting's not the best, but as you see, I mean, this thing for a factory rifle, I mean, it's smooth as butter. Of course, let's turn the safety on there, but you can see there's no rattle whatsoever once she's there. Of course, it is rock solid. Now, once it's out, you got your typical little tiny bit, but even then, no, it's not wagging a tail like a Remington 700 will, for a lack of a better way to say it. But Little things like that go a long way. I'm looking forward to hunting sheep in the future, of course, for deer and stuff here in North Georgia, deer and antelope out west. I think this will be great. 400 yards in the end is usually kind of my range I like to limit myself to, and this rifle will be perfect. This will be my go-to rifle this year. If I haven't mentioned the weight yet on this thing, the all-up weight of this, like you see it as it's going on my pack, empty chamber, of course, right now is 5 pounds 15 ounces. But that is a rifle capable of taking pretty well any North American game with the right projectile and the right operator at the right ethical range. But anyways, ultralight backpacking rifle, factory rifle, shoots sub MOA, everything I've thrown through it. The best thing I figured out, cheapo Walmart grade Remington core lock. This thing loves it. And any higher dollar or higher end quality gun that will run the cheap stuff good, you can't go wrong, because you may not be able to find your super fancy ammo when you get dropped off and something happens before you get ready to hop on the bush plane. For whatever reason, you've lost your custom stuff. If it will shoot the cheapo, you can't go wrong. But so far we've been kind of tuning it and messing around with some Nosler Accubonds in the 140 grain and above range. And yeah, so far 1 minute or sub on most of our groups, and we've only been 0 on this rifle still, but still we've got this field, as you might be able to see a little bit of it, it's been mowed. We've got 400 yards clear, and now that the temperatures are starting to drop, we'll be getting a little bit more range time with this one than some of the other bolt guns we run throughout deer season. So anyways, guys, sorry for all the rambling. Just figured I would kind of take out my new backpack rifle and do a brief little talk about it. But it will be the Barrett Fieldcraft, chambered in 7mm-08, kicking off this 2019 season that is coming up in the next few months. So anyways, as always, hope you enjoyed it. Maybe something in this made sense. As I say, if you're looking for specs, jump on over to Barrett's website or watch some other YouTube videos. When I got it, there wasn't a lot out there, and the ones that were just about 6.5 Creed and 308. But this particular one is the 21-inch barrel, non-threaded, not the 18. Anyways, guys, there it is. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.